considering to my mind, I am a victim who sees this crime. I'm gonna tell you about the afterlife. I'm gonna tell you about what happened last night. I'm gonna tell you about my insanity. Yeah, I'm talking about insanity, man. What's up with chemtrails not existing in the clouds and the skies right now? You know,
Did we not talk about chemtrails at one time?
Chemtrails establish weather patterns, Michael. And I'm here to tell you, in Arizona, chemtrails have been non-existent the entire summer. And what does that give you? Nothing but fucking 100-plus degrees of heat for like 110 days in a row. It's a record-setting pace of chaotic heat. We're this close to hell.
Okay.
I mean, we live in Arizona, so, you know, you're used to it. But fuck, dude.
I'll go
noticed
down
the other
this
day,
rabbit hole with you.
there were no chemtrails in the sky. I have not seen chemtrails in the sky at all summer long. All summer long.
So I've gone back and forth on the chemtrails. Did we not bring this up at one time?
We brought it up. We talked.
I'll talk about it again because I love this subject.
Yeah.
But according to all the experts that I've listened to, there is no such thing. But here's where I'm going down that rabbit hole again because I just watched a whole YouTube thing on the county that surrounds Asheville, North Carolina. They just found the largest lithium deposit on the entire planet.
Which has to do with chemtrails, right?
Well, no, but I'm starting to think that maybe their weather manipulation might be a little more advanced than that even because this guy's point was, when is the last time that you heard about a massive major flood in the mountains?
You don't hear about massive major floods in the mountains.
Okay, that was point number one. Point number two was there was a mining company that obviously bought up all this land, which is how we found out that the largest lithium deposit on the planet was there. And then shortly after that, within weeks, BlackRock bought up, 60% of the shares of this mining company, which everybody knows BlackRock is like a black budget military subcontractor or whatever they want to call it, but
BlackRock.
Then Hurricane Helene just decimates that entire area, and this guy's second point was, what do you suppose the one thing, especially being a real estate agent, that these people, none of them have? Because they would never anticipate that happening.
Insurance, flood insurance.
There you go, ding, ding, ding. You're the first person that got it right, and I knew you would. Absolutely. Chris Dunham for the win. You are the first person that has guessed it right immediately.
Thank you.
So,
Thank you.
He said, I hope I'm wrong, but the potential exists for the government to come in and claim eminent domain on that land because that mineral is so valuable to the infrastructure of not only the country, but the world, and just wipe out all those people because they're not even middle class, they're barely getting by mountain people.
Right. The ones that live with enchanty shacks, like dirt floors and they're hauling their own water and shit, right? Probably not any electricity. For the most part. Yeah.
I mean, That's a deep conspiracy to say that there's the capability to create a hurricane, but it seems awful odd that a hurricane would blow right by the Louisiana and Florida and all the places that it normally hits and just bring record-setting rain and torrential destruction to the mountains of North Carolina right around the same time that this was found. I mean, that's a hell of a coincidence.
It is, and that goes back to the fact that legit I have not seen, and I didn't think about it till yesterday when I was Sky and I were driving. We went and picked out her wedding dress because she's getting married in February.
Woohoo!
Yeah, that was emotional. It was a trip. It was cool. She looks beautiful in the dress she picked out.
That's awesome.
But I thought about it like I went outside. The skies have just constantly been blue and I'm outside a lot because of what I live on. You know, those that have listened to us, I live on an acre, so I'm out there at least twice a week. You know, collectively probably 12 hours a week doing yard work and taking care of the land and shit. And there's always chemtrails. There's always chemtrails. You don't go a month without seeing chemtrails. And I shit you not, I don't remember the last time I saw a chemtrail.
Okay, so here would be the scientist rebuttal to that.
Okay.
I don't remember a lot, but I remember it enough because I've heard this subject a lot because Rogan's fascinated with it too. So he's had a lot of people on there that, you know, he's like, explain to me why this is not possible.
Right.
What they would tell you is that the warming of the atmosphere at that altitude is enough to cause no condensation to go through the jet engine, because what's happening is they're saying that it's not nefarious at all, right? Nobody's putting chemicals in the what's happening is it's cold enough where they're flying that it really is creating clouds. You're right.
Yeah.
But it's not creating, you know, the acid rain, or they're not spraying chemicals down on the aluminum and barium and whatever they claim to find.
Right.
Aluminum is one of the most common substances on Earth. You find it in everything. Okay. You'll find it in a dust ball in your house.
Yeah.
But they would say that the atmosphere at that altitude is warmed up just enough that it's not creating clouds because it's not freezing as it's going through the jet engine, right?
So you're saying, so they're saying, and technically you're saying in the concept of where we're at in Arizona right now, that even the atmosphere is hot.
Yes. Correct.
See, I don't know, man. I just think it's weird for us to be as dry as we are and as hot as we are for as long as we've been. Because I've been here my entire life, essentially.
We're super dry here too, just for the record.
And you lived in Arizona for quite some time. Like legit, today is still going to be 100 degrees. Like I pulled up my weather app on my phone. And Mike, before Mike and I started the show, somebody had posted on Facebook that, listen, Arizona, happy July 71st, because that's what it seems like. Today's going to be 101. Tomorrow it's supposed to start the downward spin, 99, 97, 95, 92, 91, 86, 80, 82, 82. But usually by now, it's October 11th. Usually by now, my grass is scalped and I have a rye going. And I put it off. I'm like, I can't do it because it's so fucking hot that it'll kill it.
We're in the same boat. It's going to be 86 here today. But what you just told me is the jet stream is changing because our weather pattern is going to follow yours. So I love conspiracy theories. You know that more than anybody. I used to eat, sleep, and breathe them. But with the internet, it helped to quash a lot of those. You know, there's natural weather patterns that the earth goes through that we have no control over. You know, the Industrial Revolution has changed the weather pattern maybe less than 10% is what legitimate people, scientists who are speaking common sense. They basically say that we're super arrogant to say that we have that much control. The earth goes through these patterns all the time.
Well, yeah.
The reason we're seeing the northern lights is there was a massive storm on the sun that just blew out a coronal mass ejection that's going to cause that to happen at least for the next few months, when it would never happen at this time.
Yeah,
but the storm on the sun was massive. I got to see it on the news this morning. It was pretty cool. The shot that NASA got, or whoever.
Yeah. Yeah, there's actually people posted last night northern lights in Arizona.
See, that's crazy. That's how big that storm was.
Yeah, and I was like, wow. And the fucked up thing is when we were in Alaska, on the cruise to Alaska, fucking didn't see northern lights any day.
That sucks.
Any time, man. Like,
now they're seeing them down there in Arizona where you would never see them.
Right. So I don't go outside at 2 o'clock in the morning and go, let's go look at the northern lights. Oh, like, what the fuck, man? Like, seriously? And
went all the way to Alaska, never had to leave the house.
Right, exactly. Exactly. It's fucking ridiculous.
Not cool, man.
Did you hear that one?
Not cool.
Offthewagon.com. It's funny little kitschy gifts. This is a Good News Arizona toy. I got this at Good News Arizona. Yeah. The boo sound. I tried to get little man into it, but he didn't understand.
You know I'm a sucker for the bad sound effects.
It is, and it's great, and it comes through, huh?
Oh yeah,
that's what's cool. I like it. I like it. I like it a lot. I like it a lot. So, I fucking brain farted. Oh no, that was not what I was going to say. I don't know. Yeah.
Option number 2.
Option number 2. You had a question. You wanted to talk about something when I brought up the conspiracy thing. What was that?
Well, in addition to that YouTube video that I watched about the lithium and the whole hurricane thing, before that, and it's been bothering me ever since I heard it, like in a good way, just one of those things that I like a problem I can't solve, and I still haven't solved this problem, and I'm not sure you ever can, but in the 70s, might have been 50s or 60s. I can't find this video again. I wish I could, but what caught my ear right away was the first thing the guy said was, "You don't even know who you are." That's the first thing he said. He's a professor, obviously. He's standing in front of a college class somewhere, and that's the first thing that comes out of his mouth. He says, "You don't even know who you are."
Like that was the beginning of his lecture.
Yep.
Okay. That's interesting.
And then he goes on for like 20 minutes to tell you why you don't even know who you are. And I was just like, it gives me goosebumps even thinking about it, because he's basically saying, you didn't choose to come here, for one. You don't know how you got here.
Right.
You came in the most vulnerable form possible, in that you can't take care of yourself.
Correct.
So from the beginning, you were nurtured by someone who told you who you are, what you're going to eat, what you're going to
believe in,
wear, what you're going to believe in, what school you're going to go to. You're going to be suggested as to what career path to take, and even before that, why don't you play sports? Or, I think you're a baseball player, basketball player. And he ended that thought with, some people live their whole lifetime and never even ask questions. They just blaze through life and die, and that's it. And never even said, what do I want to do? Who do I want to be? That was basically the whole point of his lecture was, very few people ever stop and think, who am I?
Yeah.
I'm a Christian because my parents were Christians and my grandparents were Christians, and that's what I'm supposed to be.
Yeah. Our kids
I'm a doctor
Catholic.
because my dad was a doctor and his dad was a doctor, blah, 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 right?
Yep. Our kids are Catholic because Nikki was Catholic. All the men in my family were military, except I broke them all because of the asthma. All the women were some form of teacher education type thing, So yeah, it's like being complacent without realizing you're becoming complacent. You just kind of you fall into what you see and what you know. Like I know a lot of people that I went to high school with that it blows my mind they're teachers now, because in high school they were the rowdiest motherfuckers that ever walked the planet. But because their parents were teachers, they just followed that path, which is a trip.
But then I think about you, Scott, Rick, Ray Stone, all the musicians that we hung out with that we all obviously thought for ourselves.
Right.
The conversations we had are very similar to the ones we're having now.
Sure.
Very esoteric. What is life? What's life about? When you're not talking about music, that's where the conversation always went.
Yeah.
So those were people who were thinking for themselves from the get-go. And I can remember as a little kid asking those questions in my head. You never said anything like that out loud because, people either think you were crazy or...
Right.
I don't know. You just didn't talk like that back then. But the more we find out about who we are as human beings, the less any of that makes sense. It's like...
True.
Every religion can't be right.
Right.
every life path can't be right. You know, you got to have comedians, you got to have doctors, you got to have musicians, you got to have people to make society move forward. But without people who are going to break those boundaries, musicians, actors, any kind of entertainment, you know?
Yeah.
They're always going to be the people who are going to push that envelope to push us forward as human beings, you know? I think that was the point of that lecture, was every now and then you have to stop and think for yourself and decide, you know, who am I? What do I believe in? Not what did everybody tell me to believe in, you know?
Yeah.
I find it fascinating, just like that guy did, that so few people actually ask themselves that question, because I've done it constantly my entire life. Why do I believe this? You know?
Yeah.
Do I, or did somebody believe it for me?
Yeah. And see, the world we live in now, everything is so social media, i.e. we're on social media. But nobody really has to think for themselves, because their opinions are formulated by what they absorb and what they watch and what they see, which is why there's so much disdain, right, in the Facebook world, because your opinion doesn't match with my opinion. Well, fuck you, I'm not going to talk to you anymore. We were at a meeting at my office, which we have every week. That's very just chill. Nick loved him to death, but he brought up politics, and I'm like, fuck, here we go. My office is very, very, very liberal. It's a very blue office, okay? And you know me well enough, and Nick knows me well enough, because Nick and I have conversations about politics all the time, but Nick and I's conversations are kind of like your and I's conversations, where it's
civil.
Right, it's civil, and we both agree that one's a bully and one's a wannabe, and neither one of them are going to have an impact that's a positive in our world as the leaders of, you know, the country.
Agreed.
Well, I referenced Kamala, and apparently that's not how you pronounce her name. So this colleague it triggered her because I said her name wrong, and to the point that I just shut the fuck up. Like, no matter what I said after pronouncing this person's name wrong, I wasn't going to be heard. So then about an hour after everybody dispersed, went on their way home, I get this random text, you know, apologizing, blah, 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 blah. My response was, you know, I'm a big boy. We're all entitled to our opinions. The difference is I know when to shut the fuck up.
Yep, me too.
You know, so then...
And that's a huge difference.
Right. And they responded back while I was out of line, blah, blah, blah. And I just let that text go, because it's like, fuck you. You're in an environment where my brokerage is different. Like, literally, we've been talking about the NRA settlement, the bullshit that went down for 6 months before it came out, because we heard it and we read it, and so we're very well educated on what's going on in our market. We're very educated on what's going on in the nation's market, in the real estate world, all that kind of stuff. We're not just in this little box like we're in Phoenix, we're selling houses. Fuck that. We're like, we're very broad on our subjects and topics of conversations, which is why we call it Fireside Chat. It's every Wednesday night. It's not like a once a month thing. It's every single fucking Wednesday night. 52 weeks a year we have Fireside Chat. Nobody does this shit. So like you would enjoy the fuck out of it, because it's just different things that we talk about, from artificial intelligence, its impact on the world, to, you know, to politics and everything in between. So it's an environment where there shouldn't be any type of hate and verbal bashing and shit. But really, I mean, it pissed me off so much that I realized, like, you want to piss in my pants, that's fine, but I don't know how to fucking say her name. Don't care. I don't care how to say her name. Neither one of them are going to do justice to our country. Neither one of them.
Agree.
I don't think Trump actually wants to win. And the reason why I say that, if you look at all the shit that he's been saying, the dude's not a fucking idiot. He knows that illegal immigrants are not eating cats and dogs. Right? Like, he's not stupid. And he was asked a while back in an interview that if he didn't win, would he run again? And he says, no.
I saw that one too.
Right, because he's not. That's kind of why I think he's just... It's shock and awe. And I think that's what he thinks people expect from him, is to shock and awe and put his foot down and be the bully and take no's not an answer, like, fuck you, I'm going to do it anyway. But nobody in their right mind, in my opinion, and you can agree, disagree, would go on national TV and debate and make that statement thinking that it's accurate. I really don't think he wants to run. I don't think he wanted to be nominated. I think he was kind of put in there because the Republican Party just said, you're the best chance we got against Biden. By the way, where the fuck has Biden been? Like, as soon as Kamala gets nominated, Biden just fucking disappears, man.
I have seen just a couple clips of him, and he'll say like one sentence, and then he turns around and disappears.
Yeah, it's like, what the fuck? You're supposed to be running the country. Like,
I'm like, up until this election cycle, I was kind of like you. I hadn't watched the news with any regularity in a long time, but because we're doing this now and just out of morbid curiosity, every now and then I'll give it 10 minutes, and that's about all I can take before I want to puke.
Right.
But this morning I did see 2 clips of him that basically was just, telling Trump to stop being a bully. And that's exactly how it sounded. It sounded like your great-grandfather telling you, you boys better stop doing whatever.
Right.
And you're like, yeah, whatever, dude.
Yeah. But it's true, and that's why I don't really think that I don't think he wants to be in the race. I mean, the dude doesn't need to be a president. It's a shit fucking job. The stress is overwhelmingly insane. Everybody that enters the office, by the time they leave, they aged by 40 fucking years.
But he's a perpetual narcissist, so...
well, they all are, dude. Every politician is a narcissist. Every single one of them.
The one thing I'll give him credit for is he's the king of them.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. You got to be.
He has no humility whatsoever, because you can't get up there and just knowingly lie over and over and over and over and over again and have any kind of self-respect.
Yeah.
That's why true. I could never take him seriously, because if he believes what he's saying, then that makes him the king of the narcissists.
Right.
And if he knows he's lying, that just makes him a douchebag.
Yeah. Agreed. And that's the thing. The other side lies just as much. That's the thing, that neither one of them know what the fuck they're talking about, because none of them.
There's no question, but I don't think that the other side claims to not be lying.
That's true.
They're just pure evil.
Yeah.
Like,
in the conversation that I had that night,
Satan's never going to tell you he's Satan, right? He's going to be like, hey, Chris, I'm your best friend, man.
Yeah.
I'm going to make your life amazing.
Right? They just sign here on the dotted line,
Usual Suspects. The one line that I remember from Usual Suspects, the greatest trick the devil ever pulled was to convince the world that he didn't exist.
Yeah,
right?
That was a fucking great movie.
Absolutely.
And if you think about that movie, man, squirrel moment, you don't know how that movie is until the end. Like, they wrote that shit so fucking well that I don't know about you, but I had no idea.
Nope. Until
that fucking scene where he's walking when he lights a cigarette going to the Jaguar. I'm like, holy shit.
And his foot turns.
Yeah.
He always drug that foot to the side.
Yep.
And his foot turns, and you're like, oh, shit.
Yep. That's on the writing level of The Sixth Sense, because even The Sixth Sense, you didn't know.
No.
Until the very end.
That was great writing, too. Absolutely.
And that was... Right, and that was M. Night Shyamalan's breakout, and he hasn't really done shit since. It's like he peaked, and
he's supposed to have some great new movie out right now. What is it?
I don't know. He's we've watched everything he's done, and just nothing's ever held a candle to The Sixth Sense. It's just which when you come out of the gates like that, it's hard to fucking it's hard to follow up. Sophomore slump, right? It's just hard to follow up with something when you're that good at the beginking. And
it's like
it's
Boston's debut album and then the next one.
Right. It's like you think tons of bands, 10, Pearl Jam's 10, like they could never follow that up. They could never have the impact. Nirvana's Nevermind never had the impact. The only band I think that continued to have impact from album after album after album is Zeppelin. But for the most part, I don't think
not really though. Because everyone flopped. They were so far ahead of everybody that every release was not well received at all. They kept saying that it was unlistenable, and I mean they said horrible things about their release. Over time, you're right.
Yeah, you're right. Yeah, okay.
I'm trying to think of.
Yeah, think about it. What's a sophomore slump? What's a sophomore album that actually was bad? Like Matchbox 20's first album, Yourself, Some Like You, fucking fantastic. Their follow-up sucked.
I don't know. I like that's one where you and I disagree because I like everything that they did forward.
To me, it just didn't have the same. It wasn't the same. It's put it this way: like if we would have put out our first album of all the songs we played live,
we would have pissed everybody off because we were going more in the intervention divine direction.
Right.
Which will make sense to people later.
Sure, exactly, exactly. But it's that thing that everything that we wrote. I can't think of something that would not have I'm not saying every single song would have gone platinum. But our stuff was groovy and catchy enough that in an era where you didn't have social media and you just had people coming back to the show night after night after night, just for the sheer fact of word of mouth and the music that we wrote. And it still stands the test of time, and we're not out in the world with it, which we need to still do that. But so much of our stuff would hold up to today's musical standard, as well as what's going on in the world itself, which is just a trip if you think about it. That back then, the relevance of it, I don't know how to say this. It didn't seem like it would be relevant back then, but it's more relevant now because of what's happened in the last 30 years. Does that make sense?
Yeah, like we saw lyrically what was coming back then.
Right, and that's what I'm saying. Like, so Zeppelin, like we've talked about Zeppelin a lot. It's Zeppelin song comes on, it doesn't feel like 1960s and 70s. It feels like today.
Absolutely.
Savage
I've had this conversation with my dad too. Like, we'll be driving in the car to the casino or whatever, and he's always got 60s, 70s going, and Zeppelin will come on. I'll be like, doesn't that sound as good right now? It doesn't sound like 1970. I agree with you 1,000,000%. If you put the Doors on, that keyboard sound dates them to that sound.
Yeah. Well,
the one thing that John Paul Jones did brilliantly is he somehow integrated an organ and keyboards and a mandolin and all kinds of crazy exotic instruments, but it never overshadowed the song.
No, ever.
A lot of times you don't even know it's there because it's such an integral part of the song that if it wasn't there, the song would suck.
No, and that's the cool thing about Zeppelin. It just fills the space in your ears. Like it's just
they were masters at not walking on each other, which we were always conscious of too. Hey, don't I don't want to be playing a crazy guitar solo over an important lyric.
Right. Yeah.
If you're fading off into the end of a measure, I'm going to go crazy. But if you're trying to make your point, I'm going to make my solo like one note, like an octave or something, very unnoticeable.
Right.
Just to support what you're saying. And then dynamics, I guess, is what we're talking about.
Dynamics,
Zeppelin understood dynamics better than anybody.
Absolutely. Yeah.
And Scott was big on dynamics. He knew when to play soft, when to play loud.
Yeah. The Beatles you can date. You can tell when the Beatles were recording.
And part of that is not their fault because they literally were the guinea pigs for multi-track recording. There was no multi-track recording when they started. So they're all standing in a room with one or two microphones, and that's it.
Yeah.
I think they were mono. They didn't even have the opportunity to record in stereo in the beginning. So unfortunately for them, that's part of their limitation as far as sounding like the 60s because there was no multi-track recording until late 60s maybe.
Yeah.
Tony answered that question for us a long time ago and said, I can't remember all these crazy facts.
Right.
I don't have the mental fortitude, apparently. I think he said late 60s. I would say another band that followed Zeppelin's path because they couldn't get any radio play was Metallica. And that's why people got off the train at certain albums. Because if you liked them at Kill 'Em All, believe it or not, Ride the Lightning was a huge step between those two albums. Even though their sophomore album was sonically better, it sounded better, the songwriting was better.
Yeah.
But for the people who were diehards to that original thrash metal sound, even Ride the Lightning was almost too far of a step because it had a ballad on it. Fade to Black was on there.
Yeah, that's true.
Oh man, it's not even a distorted guitar, dude.
Right. They're selling out. They sold out. They wrote a ballad. What the fuck?
He turned his gain down, and it's pretty.
Yeah. Which is why when I came across that thing, I put on our Facebook page a while back with Hetfield singing that song acoustically. I forget what song it was now, but I was like, holy shit.
It was awesome.
Right. And see, then, and the cool shit that you see, again, like back in Metallica's early era, right? They're evil, they're fucking Satanists, they're devil worshippers and stuff. It's like, really? They're fucking, you look at them now, it's like, okay, I don't want to find those people that had all that that judgment. Like, okay, look, here's the Satanist, singing this commercial song, here's the Satanist father who, his son died in the bus crash, yet his father carried on his legacy by putting kids in college. So really, just put your fucking judgment into your pocket and walk away.
Yes. The one thing I do know about James, because it's recorded on film, is he's an excellent father. There's
I've heard
video of him going to his daughter's like ballet recitals and actually going and playing with his daughter as she got older at her school benefits and raising money for charity. And a lot of people don't know Metallica raises probably close to $1 million at every city they go to for their All Within My Hands Foundation, which is to feed the homeless, I believe.
Nice.
You have to look that up, but that's cool. They raise tons of money at every city they go to just for charity. So they're
evil fucking bastards.
Might be the nicest devil worshippers in the world.
Did you see the thing about Motley Crue doing a residency in Vegas and some of their proceeds are going towards the kids foundation, homeless kids foundation in Vegas?
That's awesome.
I thought that was cool. I thought that was really cool. And somebody posted this thing about Vince Neil when his solo, like, oh, it's the best version of Home Sweet Home ever. So I watched it, right? Because I like Motley Crue.
I did too.
It was the fucking worst version I ever heard.
Thank you.
Like, what the fuck?
Poor Vince just can't sing anymore.
No, and it's like I think they were trying to say, the whole thing they recorded had value to it because he's talking about service people. But even that, he kind of stumbled over. What he wanted to say was first responders and military personnel, thank you for your service, that type of thing. But it just came service industry. Well, fucking service industry can be fucking waiters and waitresses and anybody that serves. You know what I mean?
Absolutely.
And then it's like, dude, just. It's sad because he could sing, right? Back in the day, he could sing, and then he's just destroyed his voice from all the partying and the drugs and the fucking living hard. It's just, you just can't do it anymore. Just call it a day. Like, just hang it up.
I can't remember if it's on YouTube or if I watched it on Amazon. There's a documentary with, I believe it's Tom Werman. You'd have to look up the producer for Theater of Pain and Girls, I believe. Might be Shout at the Devil and Theater of Pain. Whoever did those big albums for the Crew did a documentary, and one of the interesting facts that I took away from... Yeah, okay. So if you can find the documentary that Tom Werman's talking about producing Motley Crue, the one thing that you'll take away from it is actually Vince Neil didn't know how to sing at all.
Well, I heard, Mm-hmm.
They had to teach him line by line where the melody started and where it ended. Like when a chord change would go from a G to a D, as a singer, you have to go from low to high, right? That's a low to high move. You may not know musically that that's what's happening, but you can hear it. He couldn't hear it because he was tone deaf.
Oh.
So they would say, Vince, here's where the measure starts and here's where it ends. And literally, sometimes they would have to punch it in line by line, which is super painful when you're recording,
Oh, yeah.
It's a lot of wear and tear on the tape back then. Nowadays, you're just recording to a hard drive.
Yeah.
Most people don't have 2-inch tape machines, but
no.
Back in the day, that's how they recorded, and it was very painful for the engineer to have to keep splicing the tape to put the new take in,
Yep.
Like, fuck you, Vince. There's 217 edits on this one song.
Right? That would...
Oh, it's painful. I've recorded to tape and I've recorded to computer, and I would agree that recording to tape sounds warmer. It's great.
Yeah.
But to have to splice that tape together is not the easiest thing in the world. And if you cut it in the wrong spot, the artist wants to kill you. So
yeah, I can see that.
There's a famous scene in A Year and a Half in the Life of Metallica. They got a 8.5 by 11 piece of paper on the wall, and it says Bob's mistake count.
I remember that.
Like 15. You know, they got the 1, 2, 3, 4 and the hash for 5.
Right.
It's like he's up to like 16 mistakes. That's what they meant by that, is they went to edit it and they fucked up, and then you had to go back in and re-record it. So you might have had to take, like the Unforgiven solo. If they had fucked that up, Kirk may have never been able to play that solo that way again. Right. Because he created it at that moment in time. Yeah. And in my opinion, that's one of the greatest audio captured moments in the history of music. So if you've never seen it and you're listening, go to YouTube, type in Kirk Hammett recording Unforgiven solo and enjoy, because he thought of that right there at that moment in time. And we've all heard it for all these years, and it's an amazing solo, but you actually get to see him dream it up right there, because they pulled it out of him. He had a horrible solo written for that, and nobody liked it except him. And they just kept pushing him. It's like, you're ruining the fucking song is basically what they told him.
That's the one fun thing about the studio, that the
creating.
the muse just comes up. It comes out of the walls, and you have
that's a good description.
Yeah, and you have these brilliant ideas that you never would have thought of otherwise, because you're not in that environment. And when you're in those rooms, and when the last band I was in, we went to Nashville, right? We recorded in Gravity Studios, which is owned by Dolly Parton. And there's this hallway that went from the sound booth where Tony was at mixing everything, and then you walk down the hallway. There's a door leading to the band room. We had the drums and the guitars and the bass, and they would all do it. And then you walk down the hallway even further, and then you have the vocal room. So the vocal room's at the end of the fucking hallway, and then Tony's at the end of the hallway here, and it's like, you kind of like, you can see him, but you can't see him.
Right.
But as you walk down that hall, both walls are just littered with signatures. Like, everybody that was ever in that studio wrote on the wall.
That's awesome.
Right? So just being in that, and I don't think that the other people in that band really, like, resonated with that. Like, I'm weird like that, it's kind of like, I
would have taken all that in too, for sure.
Right. So like the first time we played the Mason Jar, I remember we were there before we were early and shit and set up everything. Then I started walking around the jar, because I'd never heard of the jar before. And when I was walking around the bar itself, on the wall, remember Franco, and there's just pictures galore of everybody that fucking stepped foot in that place from the day it began to when there was no more room left on the walls. It blew my mind that I'm standing on a stage where, like, just these epic singers and vocalists and bands and musicians were on this tiny little fucking stage.
Tool that blew that place up before we did.
Just everybody,
fucking Tool stood on that stage. Think about that, ladies and gentlemen.
Right.
The biggest heavy metal band on the planet next to Metallica right now played a 250 seat, 300 at best club.
Right. That's the thing. So when I walked
Nirvana.
Right. So when I walked down that hall at Gravity Studios, and I just kind of looked to the left, I'm like, holy shit. And then I kind of stopped. I'm like, these are fucking signatures. You couldn't read half of what they were because they're signatures, but you knew they were signatures to people. So one of the times going back and forth, I had a Sharpie, and I wrote my name on the wall, because why the fuck not? And they didn't realize that was there, because then we talked about it later, and I brought it up, and Jesse's was, no way, dude, like, serious? I'm like, yeah, you didn't fucking see the wall? Like, how can you not see the, like, I mean, it was dark, it was a hallway, but still, it was really cool, because it was that thing where you're there, and all the spirits of the musicians that have been there before you, that have, some are gone, some are still with us, but there's pieces of their soul on that wall. There's pieces of their soul in that room, and it's that thing. If you're really a creative person and your mind is so open to that, and you're in that environment, I think you just can't help but feed off that energy and that power. I mean, we did 4 songs that day, and I sang Shit You Not for 12 hours with one break.
That's crazy.
And the beginning of Empty Man was from a scratch vocal I was doing over the track of Empty Man, because Tony didn't tell us we were going to record it for real. And they kept fucking up. To your point, they kept fucking up at this point in the song. So I rattled it off, like, stop fucking up and get it right, man. because they'd get to the point where the song where my vocals going up, and I'm holding it out, and they would kept the one who played guitar just kept fucking it up, and it 5 or 6 times in, it's like, motherfucker, this is not an easy thing to do back to back to back to back to back to back to back. Like you gotta fucking hit your mark, so I know where to stop. And that made it to the final cut, which is funny because, we played that on a radio on the way to Sturgis, and we forgot that part was there. So the DJ hit play, and there was a silence, and it says, "Stop fucking around and get it right, man." And everybody's face like, "What?"
That's awesome.
And then the music starts, and there's nothing you could do about it because it already like, I'm like, "Oh shit, that's right, I forgot that was there. My bad." It's just, "You can't fucking do it." Puts his hand on the mic. "You can't fucking do that. What are you doing? Sorry."
Well, that's why the few times that I've been involved in situations where people don't realize that the atmosphere is just as important as anything. It's probably more important than anything, because if you're trying to create in a sterile environment, that's what you get.
It sucks. Yeah.
You get a sterile outcome,
Yeah.
When you said that it oozes out of the walls, that's what it has to be. The lighting has to be right. The scenery has to be, what you're looking at has to be right.
Yep.
You can't feel like you're living in everyday normal society.
No.
And be creative. That just
agreed.
To the layman or the normal person or whatever you want to call people that aren't artists or musicians, when you switch into artist mode, there's a reason that my lighting looks like it does in here. It's a beautiful summer day in Illinois. Trust me, people. The grass is green. It's 80 degrees outside. That doesn't make me want to feel introspective and esoteric. It makes me want to be outside just like it would any normal human being. So Chris and I are doing this on a Friday afternoon because it's my day off and he's got time. And we both feel like, we're more creative that way. So we tried something different to create a nighttime environment, which is when I would normally be creative. Some people are creative at 4 o'clock in the morning. I know James Hetfield gets up super early. He likes to work during the day. Lars likes to work all night. People are different. Mm-hmm. That's another video moment that got created where they had creative differences. James was getting pissed because he was tired of staying up till 2 o'clock in the morning.
Yeah.
Certain people like to get up at 4 and go to bed at 8. It's just where they're at. I'm starting to become that person because I've been on
part of that's your job. Part of that's your job, though.
I've been on day shift long enough.
Yeah.
Your body gets on a cycle.
Yeah.
Every time I think I'm going to sleep in, I did it again this morning. It's like, okay, look at that. It's 10 after 5. I'm fucking wide awake. I slept an hour past when I normally would have.
But that's still sleeping in,
So
even if it's just an hour, you're still sleeping in. So that's,
That was a horrible squirrel moment. The whole point of that conversation was to say that, there has to be some kind of willingness and wanting to be creative, so the environment has everything to do with it.
Yeah, absolutely. Like you didn't know me when I recorded "Welcome to My Mind," that the audio thing with lyrics and poetry and stuff. But
you did that before you met me, right?
Yeah. So, but the studio itself, there was no lights on. I had candles lit. We had this weird, I don't know why, there was this weird like 4x4 piece of copper that I would, during the recording, I would go wick, 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 and it would make this weird sound, right? I was still drinking back then, so I got Mickey's. I don't know why I got Mickey's. I think I got
Mickey's
it because I would go to the microphone and I'd screw the bottle top off. So I had all these sound effects going on as I'm reading what I wrote. And then they were recording. There was a rainstorm because they had tons of chemtrails that month. So outside there was a pouring rainstorm. So we had stuck a mic outside to record the rain. So the rain's being recorded on a track while I'm recording inside the studio. And this whole monologue of poetry, lyrics, and beliefs, which is exactly what it sounds, which I did after I released Disorder Reason, which is the poetry book. So some of it was earmarked for the follow-up on that, which I never did. But it was cool because I created the environment inside the studio, and it was a hot mic, so everything that I did was picked up. Like I was smoking a little bit, so you'd hear that, and you'd hear the lighting, the match with light and shit. But it created this really cool, eerie ambiance. on that recording that just it can never be duplicated. I got the DAT right, and I gave it to Neanderthal. I'm like, hey, dude, can you mix this down? And and he couldn't mix it down. He couldn't figure it out because there's so much fucking shit going on that he just gave it back to me. It's like I got nothing, man.
So when we have Tony on here, you'll have to ask him if he has the equipment, because he's probably hung on to every piece of equipment he's ever had in his entire life. Yeah. He might have something at his studio that he can help you out with.
Yeah, there's the DAT.
Yeah, so I know he listens. This is, episode 49, Mr. Palmer. If you have is it a DAT or an ADAT?
It's a DAT. It says DAT.
Okay. So if you have a way to mix down a DAT for Mr. Dunham, get a hold of us. We'll mail it to you. And
yeah. Because I have one cassette tape left. One.
Didn't you and I record something in my apartment?
We did. That was Welcome to Your Mind Part 2. I don't know what I don't know what we did with that, though.
It was underneath. It was in the boxes of things that I left behind that I would still have.
Yeah,
but,
right.
Yeah.
You know. Yeah, I don't know where that went. But yeah, we did that because that was because I wrote it because I wanted to follow up to that.
Yeah, and then I was going to put music to it or whatever.
Mm-hmm. Yep, exactly.
Yeah.
Yep, because what we had behind that one was just a bunch of weird random takes that studio had of just like literally random nothingness things of just everywhere, and it just there was the end of it was I think on Welcome. This guy named Mitch Brown, which is a really cool dude, old school alcoholic. Like, just if you think of an old man in a boat, that's Mitch. Like, he just gray hair, gray face, kind of like a hollow face, and weathered, like lived a life, right?
Right.
And old hands, like his hands are really old, like arthritic, knuckles and shit. Had a really, really fucking cool voice. And he had this folk song about drinking at the bar and shit. And I think it's on there. I haven't listened to it for so long, but just a really cool old soul that guy was. He's probably dead by now, but like, just little things like that you're never ever going to duplicate again in your lifetime. It's just impossible to duplicate because you're right place, right time. Everything lined up. All the stars were in place, and the environment was there, the energy was there, and it's just like, let's just do this, You
kind of just answered, and I've had a lot of questions in the last week because I knew this was coming up. Normally we record this on Tuesday, so ladies and gentlemen, I had 3 extra days to come up with good ideas and topics, and that was actually one of them. It's like, was our success because we didn't know any better, or were we at the right place at the right time? I think it's a combination of a lot of things.
Uh-huh.
It had to be the right people, which I knew from the beginning, and obviously you guys did too, because that's how we all found each other. You knew you had to be
because the way we found each other was so fucking random.
It couldn't have been any more random.
No.
I was there by myself.
I know. That was just
so for the
random.
people that I've told, that have only known me in this incarnation of my life, which is another question I have for you.
Okay.
I used to just do random shit by myself, which is probably why I don't do a lot of those things today. Maybe I should, but to me, it's like I've been there, done that. I'm not interested in going to a concert by myself because I've seen almost every band I wanted to see. Right. The ones that I haven't are not with us anymore.
Yeah.
But back then, I wanted to see Candlebox and I didn't know anybody. I knew all of like 5 people when I moved to Phoenix, and they were my family and they had jobs and they were busy and I was on my own. So
right.
I saw Candlebox was coming, and they were one of those albums that came out that you could listen to from beginning to end. If you didn't like them, you don't like them, and I don't understand why, because that first album is perfection from beginning to end, and I wanted to see. My fascination with music was twofold. You write an album like that, you blow me away. Now can you pull it off live?
Right.
So
exactly.
I'm like, I wonder if these guys are really that good. Not only are they really that, back then, not only were they really that good, they were better live than they were on that CD.
Yeah. Oh, hell
by a fucking landslide.
Yeah, and from a vocal standpoint, he hit everything. There was no. And I just saw him a couple years ago. Same.
He took care of his voice, obviously.
Fuck yeah, he did. Just same. I mean, there was some little parts where you're like, okay, I didn't expect you to hit that anyway because your age. But I'm going to say 95% of that show, it was like it was laid down in a studio.
That's awesome. And that's what you and I heard. And for the people that haven't heard the story, the power went out. Chris was singing along the entire show.
Right. Sorry.
And no, it was like you were harmonizing with him, which is what caught my ear. I'm like, man, this motherfucker can sing, you know? Mm. So we had a moment in time where there was nothing going on because there was no power and they didn't have any acoustic instruments. That's my joke. But
right. Wait.
Yeah. Hey. Real raw and relevant. There you go. So apparently I had a business card back then. I was really on top of my game.
Yeah.
And the rest is history. That's how we're sitting here talking to you today, ladies and gentlemen.
Yeah. Just whips around, and he kept looking at me while I was singing, and I'm like, and it was with Nikki, and I'm like, what the fuck is this long hair dude keep looking at me for? Like, what the fuck, man? And then, like Mike said, power went out, and fucking house lights come on a little bit so you can see, and he fucking whips around with this business card. You a singer, dude? I'm like, I don't know, I guess. He's like, check us out, give me a call. I'm like, okay. And there you go.
Well, we had just fired our singer and our bass player, who was the same person, so we were a little desperate.
Yeah, but that's that thing, man. It's just those are those things you look back on in life. What are the odds of me standing behind you at the ballroom at a Candlebox show? I had a garage band because I wanted to be in a band, you know, and it wasn't.
That's all we were at this point too.
Right, and it wasn't.
We had played like a handful of shows as Desperate Angel, which you were a part of before we changed. You know, you were a lot of the reason we changed to Nemesis because we knew we were going in a different direction. Yeah, everybody fucked up that name, and it just didn't fit us anyway. But we had literally only played a handful of shows. You know, I had some connections with the ballroom and the guy that ran sound there. I was just starting to like lay my networking groundwork. Yeah. So for the ladies and gentlemen at home that are listening, this was 1994, approximately 5 at the latest, and there was no real internet, and you actually had to go talk to people and establish relationships, and if you severed any one of those relationships, you'd get blackballed in that community. So you had to be super careful because it wasn't like going to apply for a job or something. No, you know, they didn't sit you down and say, "Hey, what's your resume say here, sir?" It was more like, you know, you didn't see us doing cocaine on the lines on the fucking desk in the back room. It was those kinds of things. You know, you learned how to keep your mouth shut. And that was the world that you were operating in, whether anybody wants to believe that or not. When I tell you that if I haven't done it, I've seen it. Those are the stories that, you know, being in a band, you would never think about the networking side of it. And back then it was hanging up flyers and face-to-face conversations. Yep. I didn't know Franco was involved with the Mafia until somebody told me.
Right, when he went knocking on his door. You did what?
Yeah, well, fucker owed me money. And he actually admired me for having the balls to come collect my money, you know? Yep. We got better gigs after that.
Yeah. Yeah, it's amazing what you can do by fucking just being yourself. You know? And it's not anything you wouldn't do today, and that's the thing. You have to look out for yourself, period. Even back then and even today. You just you know, somebody owes you money.
I almost think even more so today.
Yeah,
because you're inundated. This is the other question that I had for you that's on the esoteric level.
Okay.
Think about when because you and I are about the same age. Think about when you were maybe 8 years old. Okay. And so for you, what are you, 54?
Yeah, nice job, Mike. So I look 54 now because I got the scruff going on.
No, you're 3 years older than me. I knew. So let's say in 1970 or 1980, somebody talked about 1960. That seemed like 100 million years.
It did.
Before you had existed, right?
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
So we're in 2024, so 2004 is the same distance away. Does that seem like a million years ago to you, like it did at that time?
On some levels, yeah.
Yeah, see, to me it doesn't. Yeah. It's like time's going faster.
On some levels it does. It's time is going faster. I think time goes faster with age. I think anybody that has reached this age in their life of 50 plus, I think it does go faster because the average lifespan of a male in the United States is 76. Right now, whether you live till 76 or 106, we have no control over that. Right. But I think once 0 to 21, it drags because you're living in the moment and you're enjoying everything. There's no worldly pressures on you. There's no I have to fucking do this. I have because you're living at home at some level, usually till 18, 19 years old.
And it all goes back to the same way we started the conversation. People are telling you what to do and who to be. Right. But so you're living. That's exhausting.
It is, but you're living the life on this under this umbrella, right? Where all you know is the world that you're in. So I think it goes slower. Because, think about it. When you're kids, you have all these ideas and dreams like, oh, when I get my driver's license, I'm going to do this, I'm going to do this, I'm going to do this. And then in reality, I think 90% of you don't do what you envisioned yourself doing once you got your driver's license because it sounds all good.
Right.
But then once you get it, it's like, oh, well, shit, that means I got to drive for 5 days. I don't want to drive for 5 days because it's going to cost me this much money in gas. And then
I don't want to take my little brother to school.
Right, so there's all kinds of but that's the thing. So you have all these grand ideas of things you want to accomplish, and then like we talked about, you're in this bubble, like Little Man and Trip, right? They live next to us, and every time Anthony comes home from school, he'll go outside. This is funny, but boys are boys, so he'll go outside and he'll pee in the grass because why not? That addition was built for him and his mom, not him and his mom and his brother and his dad. It was built for 2, not 4. So there's one bathroom. So he'll go out and he'll pee in the rocks, or not in the rocks. He'll pee in the grass. Well, as soon as he opens the door, Trip takes off. Trip takes off and comes running down the sidewalk back of the house, and you just start hearing this pop 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 pop. So then I was in the kitchen yesterday. And I hear it, and I open the door, and there's Trip running down the sidewalk, and his dad's coming to get him, and so we talked for a few minutes. But that's the world they know. They don't know anything outside of this. So, I mean, granted, they're 4 and 4.5 and almost 5 and 1. Wouldn't it be 1.5? But that's the world they know. So as long as they live next to us, they have to conform to what we do because they don't have a choice because they're kids. They don't have that free will yet. They will eventually, but
I guess what I'm saying is you're kind of proving my point because think about how little access to information we had when we were his age versus how much smarter he's going to be as a 5-year-old. We were like chimpanzee fucking stupid at 5 years old.
Yeah.
These kids now operate an iPad and the television and their fucking phone. Yeah. That's what I'm saying.
He does all that.
If you had handed us an iPhone, 5-year-old Chris and 5-year-old Mike, we would have looked like a monkey trying to fuck a football.
Yeah, right.
Right. For real.
No,
I know that's funny, and that's one of the funniest things that I think I've ever heard or said. I always like that expression. Yeah. I stole it from somewhere.
But it's this morning he didn't like what he was watching. He watches this thing called JJ Mikey now, which is about Minecraft. It's videos, it's screen recordings of Minecraft video play, which is just weird to me.
Well, that's what these kids like.
I know.
They're different.
So, and then we get out the blocks and we build Minecraft for real. But he didn't like the episode, so he grabbed the mic from me and started, moving it around on the thing, trying to find the one he wanted to find, and then he ended up going too far. So I was like, "Hey, dude, what are you looking for?" And he explained it. So then we looked for it together. But he knew exactly where on the remote, and he doesn't have access to our remote like 24/7 like he does at home at his house, But it's a trip. And the iPad, he'll fucking every now and then I gotta look at what he's watching the iPad. I'm like, dude, what are you watching? Like, you fucking stop that. That's not appropriate for you. Get off that.
So. And the fascinating thing is these kids can identify the icons with their eyes and their brain before they can read, right?
Yeah,
They know what that means and what it does and what its function is.
Yep.
Just like before that existed, you learned words and shapes and whatever. But the amount of information that is being poured into all of our brains is unprecedented. So I guess that was my question. Is that causing it to appear that time is going faster?
I think so. Because everything's right now. Everybody's attention span is dropped, right? And there's studies galore that it's.
Well, we proved it with our own analytics. We talked about that.
Exactly. So that's completely
less than
dropped.
30 seconds.
Right.
It's
so
actually less than 15 seconds.
Right. So you have that, and then it's a scroll world because our life is scrolling. Right. You don't. Your life is wrapped around what you see on your phone. Right? Your life's not wrapped around what you see when you're out in public because people, you go to work. It's kind of like, remember the original Point Break where the whole reason why Brody and his crew were robbing banks is because they were standing up for the little man who was driving down the freeway in his iron coffins, right?
Yep.
In the metal coffins. Remember that scene?
Yep. Absolutely.
It's that
Great
same
movie.
kind. It's conceptually, it's the same concept to me. And again, we're just as guilty. Here we are, podcasting, social media platform. You don't. The thing that COVID did, how COVID destroyed our country was everybody all of a sudden became introverted and living through vicariously through everybody else's lives online. Nikki told me something the other day that she actually discovered Amazon during COVID.
Oh, me too. A lot of people did.
Right.
I'm
knew
right there with her.
Amazon. You knew Amazon back in the day, though, so you knew it was there. But she literally didn't know Amazon existed.
Okay.
Until
No,
COVID.
no. Okay.
She didn't
I just
realize.
didn't start using it until then. Okay.
Right.
I got you.
Right. So, but
That's crazy.
Right. So, see, and I left. I had a company where we were 60 strong in the office every single day. COVID hit, it dropped to 4.
Wow.
Because everybody moved out.
Sure.
Like, fuck this. I'm going home. Right. But that's the problem. I think the impact that COVID's had in the last, and it's never going to change. Right. It's never going to go back to the way it was because nobody truly realizes they need it to be back the way it was prior to COVID to function as a normal, healthy society. That's why there's so much fucking bitterness and fighting and attacking on Facebook, and there's so much violence and growth and
I think
depression and all that shit. Because everybody, not to interrupt you, but everybody has backed up their life to this. This is my life now. Everything I
would
do is
agree
here.
with that.
And I hate
But
that
there's
because
those
I can't hang like that.
I'm with you because if you're on our side of the fence, the one thing that we realized during COVID and the one thing that I didn't realize that I would be thankful for now sitting here having this conversation is that we got to go to work every night. You know, we were deemed an essential employees. So
Right.
really COVID didn't change our lives other than we knew it changed everybody else's life. We went to work just like it was any other day. You know, you had to wear a stupid fucking mask, which didn't do anything, but that's a whole nother debate.
Right.
But at least we got to get out of the house. And another conversation I had the other day was I actually had access to a grocery store that is in a small town that they gave everybody the option to be themselves. You know, if you wanted to wear a mask, you could wear a mask. If you didn't, they didn't buy into that bullshit ever the entire time.
Yeah.
So a lot of my life was pretty normal, other than it wasn't normal for anybody else. And the point of this statement is people like you and I realized very quickly that human interaction is essential for any kind of normalcy to life and just existing without depression.
Right.
It taught a lot of people that if you don't have any human interaction, or scientists have proven that if, you know, like a hug can just like it releases all these endorphins in your brain that you can't have without having skin to skin contact with somebody else.
Absolutely. And that goes back to that statement. It's just
it proves your point is what I'm saying. Yeah.
You need the interaction. You need to feed. It's everybody. I said it before about the studio, like the muse was coming through the walls, right? Yeah. It's the same concept. Which is why I ended up going where I'm at from a real estate brokerage standpoint, because of, like we talked, and we have the weekly meetings, and I'm there 2 days a week for the office hours, and even though maybe nobody walks into the office from a client standpoint, I'm still able to interact with Nick and Christy and fuck around and be silly and just get that interaction, which you need. People need that interaction, and we left last night from helping Skylar pick out her wedding dress, right? Then we went and got food and had to get some dog food for Dozier. And as we're getting on the freeway, I look to the right, and Chick-fil-A, right? Shit you not, 30 vehicles, 2 lanes lined up in the drive-through. Just people complain about the cost of living and how much food costs and shit, and they're in a Chick-fil-A drive-through, probably spending $40 a pop.
And burning up all the gas while they're waiting in line, right?
And so instead of going inside the place and interacting, they're staying in their vehicles, and it just blows my mind that people will bitch so much about income and money and the cost of living, blah 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 blah. But every time I turn around, and here it's down to $3.25, which I hate to fucking say that. That's a pretty good price for a gallon of gas.
We're about tied then. Yeah.
Yes, I filled up yesterday. I let my truck go down like 78 miles till empty, and it cost me $116 to fill it up. But I have a 26-gallon tank.
Right.
So
mine's 16.
Right, and when I do ethanol, it's usually about $80. But I wasn't near an ethanol station. But it's that thing that you're choosing. You're choosing not to interact. You're making the conscious effort not to interact by just sitting in your car and going through a drive-through, getting food, and then you eat the food on your way home. And you go into your house, and then everybody's done eating their food, and they scatter to their rooms. So you've created this forced environment in a drive-through, right? Because they're all families in that shit. And then you eat it on the way home, and then you disperse to your rooms.
And then those are also the same people who are going to bitch about, we'd like to eat healthier, but we can't afford to, right? We can't afford not to.
Right.
How much more is a bag of apples than that drive-through meal?
Right.
Right.
I had the lady that I got in a debate with about politics. She just came back from I think they were in Italy for about 3 weeks, and the food there, she's like, it's just insane how clean the food is there compared to what we eat in America.
Yes.
It's just clean. It's fresh. It's like to find eggs, which is going to be my struggle because we're gonna do a cruise next year and go up that coast of the world over there, wherever that is. But apparently you can't find eggs to save your life. Like, they don't have eggs.
Really?
Yeah, you don't eat eggs for breakfast.
Oh, I love eggs.
It's croissants. It's fresh baked goods. There's eggs and shit.
Yeah, but then after my croissant, I need some eggs.
Right, that's what I'm saying.
You're missing the point here, people.
Like, I don't know what I'm gonna do, because every day
there better be some bacon and some fucking toast with it too.
That's right. When we were on the cruise, man, Nikki ate bacon every day.
Hash browns or something.
Yeah, she ate bacon every day because I don't do the swine. I'm like, I'll make you bacon. She's like, I feel weird having. I'm like, you want bacon? We'll make bacon. You eat it. I don't give a shit.
I love bacon.
I don't care. When I went on that health kick, that's just one of the things I stopped, and I just went back to it. Which right or wrong. I got into fish though. I finally into fish. Like, I had fish and chips on the. I tried her fish and chips on the ship, and like, oh, that's good. Then I had Baja fish tacos. I'm like, that's good. So I'm she's like, it only took you 30 years. Too. Right. I see. I never liked it because I didn't like the smell of it. But there's fish that don't taste fishy.
Yes.
So
I don't like fish that takes. I worry about people that like that kind of fish.
Yeah. So we're on the non-fishy fish now. And with that, I thought we should wrap this puppy up because that's a non-fishy thing, and then I have an idea after we're done, which I'll share with you, which you'll really like. So what was this, 49?
Yes.
Okay, so this was episode 49, and we're ending it on, and fish is food. Okay, they're not friends. Eat fish.
Just don't eat too much of it because it's full of mercury.
And not the fishy kind, not the kind that smells fishy.
Yes.
Eat the fresh fish. Right? I'm Chris Dunham. He's Mike Michaels. Until next time.
Don't let the bad days win, people.
Exactly. Tomorrow's always a better day. See ya.
Peace.